Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Audio Fanfics and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto Uzumaki was banished and rose as the Uzukage, godlike Naruto times Hinata Hyuga times Sakura Haruno times Ino Yamanaka times Tamari times Tenten times Anko Mitarashi times Tsunade times Mei Terumi times Samui times Kyubi Harem, Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic then, the following morning on the main island, everyone decided to split up to ask the locals around the island and see if they can get any leads. It took some time, before Naruto found a lead from a woman that has lived on the island for years. She explained how she and her husband left to fish near Demon Island. She had dived into the water and got a hefty catch, but when she returned to the surface, her husband was gone without a trace. This piqued Naruto's interest as he shelved this information for a later time. He then asked if there was a girl around his age with dark blue hair that wore bandages around her face, arm, and leg on the island. The woman explained that description matched a young girl by the name of Isaribi. She along with several other fishermen had disappeared some time ago, but she was the only one to return. Naturally everyone suspected some foul play, but she never said anything and this caused everyone to believe she was involved in the disappearance, and thus began treating her like an outcast. Naruto felt sympathy for the girl, but even he could not ignore how suspicious it was that she was the only one to return. In hindsight, he could understand the islanders' reaction, even if he didn't like it. So Naruto asked if she knew where Isaribi lived, and she gave Naruto a general idea of where she lived. Naruto sent a telepathy message to Ari about his findings, as he went off to find the so-called monster girl. It took Naruto traveling for 30 minutes before reaching the outskirts of the island where Isaribi lives. As he walks on a rugged terrain near the shoreline, he spots a small house in the distance. He quickly sped up and reached the house in just under a minute. When he reached the house, he was greeted to the sight of Isaribi being bullied, again. This time by some children that were throwing rocks at her. Naruto growled in rage as his eyes turned into slits as he released a potent amount of Ki that got all of their attention. The children were understandably very frightened, while Isaribi was shocked to see him again. You brats have 10 seconds to get out of my sight. Now, he growled. The children took the hint and ran away. Naruto then looks at Isaribi who looks on in shock before her face morphs to one of annoyance. He goes up to her and offers her a hand, but she just rudely slaps it away again. Naruto sighed in exasperation. You know, most would say thank you in this situation. I did not need your help. She said cynically. Right, because you were handling the situation so well. Isaribi growled as she got up. What do you want? She gritted out. I was asking around the island for you. Naruto said as he saw the girl glare at him with eyes full of anger and hatred. Why? Did they tell you that I'm the monster girl? The bitch of the sea? Have you come to take my life to appease them? She bitterly asked. Naruto shook his head. My reason is because I want answers. He said. Answers to what? Why are attacking and kidnapping fishermen on the island, and don't deny it. I know you were the one I saw last night. You wouldn't understand. You're right, I wouldn't understand. I don't understand how you can hate being called a monster, yet you're just adding fuel to the fire by being the very thing you are hated for. Shut the hell up. You don't know anything about me. How could you? You don't know what suffering is like. Isaribi was suddenly bombarded by a very powerful ki coming directly from Naruto. I tread carefully with your next words. They could be your last. Naruto warned darkly. Isaribi gulped in fear. I will give you this one warning. Either stop or I will stop you and your accomplices. Even if it means I have to kill you all to stop this. Isaribi stared at him in shock as he turned and disappeared in a black shunshin. Naruto reunites with his girlfriends before explaining his encounter with Isaribi. They understood his frustration, but told him that he should have kept his temper in check. Naruto nodded, which is why he left a clone to keep watch of her. They all decided to wait for Isaribi to wait patiently. Isaribi was secretly walking to some far-off location on the island. Unbeknownst to her, the Naruto clone was keeping watch of her. The clone followed her until it sees Isaribi go through a cave near the shoreline. The clone dispels to alert the real Naruto. The team teleport to the entrance of the same cave, and quickly go through it to find an opening. They come out to a shoreline with an exit to the ocean. They see at the top of the water was Isaribi and another man. He was tall and muscular with round dark sunglasses covering his eyes. For some reason Naruto and Hinata felt like they should know this person, but shook their heads. "Looks like you were followed," said the man. "Sorry," she muttered. "We need to head back to base," he said. The two quickly jumped into the water and disappeared from sight. Hinata quickly activated her Byakugan to follow the two. "I can see them. They heading out into the sea," she said. "Great. How the hell do we find them now?" Tayuya growled in annoyance. "I know where they are headed," Naruto said as everyone looked at him. He turned to them. "They are going to Demon Island, and that's where we are going to settle this." Demon Island, hidden base. Slap. Isaribi was on the ground, cradling her swollen cheek. "You stupid bitch, you had one job, and you blew it. Now we'll have to deal with these uninvited guests." Amachi growled. "I should get rid of you, or just leave you as entertainment for my men." Isaribi looked up with wide, fearful eyes as she began to shake. "However, you did bring me valuable info on the trading ships leaving tomorrow, so I guess I will let you off the hook for now." Isaribi nodded in gratitude. "Thank you. Now then, if you do a good job in killing these intruders, I might consider changing you back." Isaribi's eyes widen in hope at the prospect at being cured. "I will take care of them, that's a promise," Isaribi said as she stood up and walked away. When she was far from hearing distance, they all began to laugh hysterically. "You're one sadistic bastard, Amachi. You know that, right?" Amachi simply scoffed. "I just know the best way to manipulate people to do what I want." "Well, I should get in position for our little surprise," said one of the men. "You do that, while I do some last-minute work," the scientist replied. Naruto and his team finally reached the island after persuading someone to lend them a boat. "Hinata, do you see anything?" he asked. Hinata surveyed the surroundings until she saw something that caught her attention. "There's a cave entrance a few miles ahead," she said. The group trekked to the cave entrance and wandered in for a few minutes until they reached a fork with several different pathways. "Great. Now what?" Tayuya growled in annoyance. "Hinata, any way of telling us which is the right one?" Ari asked. Hinata shook her head. "Gomen, all of these pathways are cloaked with chakra. So I can't tell which is the right way. So we have to split up?" Ultir asked, and Naruto nodded. "We don't have a choice," he said. Naruto then creates several clones to take several of the other paths. Naruto goes on the path straight ahead, Hinata and Tayuya take one other path, while Ari and Ultir take the last path available to them. Clone Group 1 continued to trek the path they took. So far nothing has happened, which has put the clones on edge on how confident the enemy is that they'll win. Or they were dumb enough to not set up the security. The clones really hoped for the latter. The clone team eventually reached a door at the end of the pathway. The group quickly splits and surround the door at different angles. One of the clones activated the Sharingan to peer into the room for any chakra signatures. Surprisingly, there was no one in the room. The only thing the clone could see was a single chakra signature. One of the clones finally decided to barge in. Nothing happened. Comma dot. Naruto was beginning to wonder, why they were underestimating them so much. Oh well, this gives his team an advantage. He looks around to see several machines and computer panels around the room with several wires on the floor and ceiling connecting to the tube in the middle of the room. The Naruto clones looked around the room and found several piles of papers left behind. The clones gave a quick survey at the notes written down. Blood and gene splicing, bloodline fusions, artificial breeding and bloodline implants. Kaima project. This has Orochimaru written all over it. These notes have some other people mentioned who assisted in his experiments. Any idea who they are? The names here are Amachi and Hirako. One of those two, or even Orochimaru, is performing the experiments here. Anything on the tube here? Something about the Hazuka clan of Kiri. What? Give me that and dispel, demanded one of the clones. Soon one of the clones disappeared and the information transferred to the other clones in the original. Ability to turn their bodies into water using a secret technique exclusive to them. It looks like whoever is in charge here was trying to fuse this ability with his Kaima project, and from what we have read and seen, it's to turn people into some type of fish monster. That explains the demons and where the missing people went, said another clone said. Ho, this is an interesting development, another voice said. Naruto and the clones turned to the tube to see a person with violet eyes staring at him. The person gave the clones a fanged smile. What's up? Another group of clones was slowing descending a flight of stairs in their route. They soon reached the end of the corridor to an opening. They all used their chakra to stick to the walls as they slowly trekked to the walls. They looked into the corridor to see several rows of bars going on for a bit with several men around each of the bars. This must be where they are holding their captives. Let's see if we can hear anything of interest, one of the clones said quietly. The clones then uses their chakra to enhance their hearing. I can't believe we have to guard these fools. Just be quiet and deal with. Not like we have anything better to do. I can think of several ways to pass the time, one of the guards said. Naruto could hear a lot of whimpering and shuffling in the room. The captives were probably moving to the back of their holding cells. Why don't we have some fun with some of these females? They are quiet, the lookers. Yeah, especially those feisty redheads. You bastards even try to touch us, and it'll be the last mistake you'll make. Must kill. Morgiana. Karen. Calm down. Like hell, Hanoka. Rika, I could use some help. Like those two would listen to us. We should just take our chances and take on the guards. You touch my So-chan, and I'll rip your balls off your. Growled a girl from the room. I will not let you humiliate my clan or my sisters any further. Sonia. Seraphal. Please calm yourselves. Let me go, Akino. Same to you, Rainer. You bastards touch my daughters or wife, and I'll kill you. We won't let you touch those girls, you sick bastards. Slam. Shut the hell up, all of you. Need I remind you fish freaks, that without us you'll be stuck like this forever. So shut up and let us have our fun or you won't ever get that cure. Naruto had already stopped listening as he was now doing his best to keep control before completely losing it and slaughtering those bastards. One clone quietly moved in to get a clear shot at the goons. He took out a few smoke bombs. The clones discreetly rolled them into the room. The bombs reached the goons before they went off as they completely enveloped the room with dark violet smoke. What the hell? Shouted one of the prisoners. What's going on? Smoke bombs. We're under attack, shouted the guard. Someone set the alar said one guard before getting his head pierced with a kunai. What happened? Before another was killed from a slit throat. Another guard fell. Mons, said one of the last guards before dying as well. The prisoners could only look on in confusion as they heard the cries of the guards. Just what was going on? Suddenly there was a large slam as the smoke cleared. There stood a masked ninja holding the last living guard by the throat. This gave the prisoners some sense of hope. Could this be the person to save them from this hell? Naruto glared at the guard with pure hatred in his eye. You're gonna tell me everything you know about these prisoners and what plans you bastards had for all of them. Naruto said in a low growl. Never. I'll die before I tell you anything, the guard said defiantly. Naruto merely smirked. I knew you would say that, he said darkly. Under the mask, his eyes turned into the Sharingan. The Sharingan, while immature, can still perform very potent genjutsus. Sharingan. Naruto quietly muttered. The guard's eyes became dilated as the genjutsu put him under Naruto's complete control. Now tell me about these prisoners. Naruto demanded again. The ones behind you are mostly those we captured from the village on the main island. Amachi-sama wanted to use them in his experimentation in his Kaima project to create an army of merpeople. Naruto nodded. Is there a cure for this Kaima project? No, Amachi never had any intention of curing anyone. He made the lie up to always keep everyone under his leash. They'll be stuck like that forever. This caused several of the prisoners to roar in outrage. What the hell? He promised us. He played us for fools. How can we face our families like these? We'll be freaks forever. What about the rest of us? Yeah, what was gonna happen to us? Next. Question: who are in the bars behind you? Naruto asked. They were members of clans that Amachi was interested in researching. Naruto tilted his head. What clans? He asked. The first two clans were known as Styri and Leviathan clans, said the hypnotized guard as members of the two clans growled at the guard in hatred. What did he want from the two clans? He asked. Amachi wanted to research their ability to manipulate water, wind, and ice. The latter being used by the Leviathan clan. This got Naruto to blink. This was getting interesting. Ice. Did they any relation to the Yuki clan of Kiri? He asked. This got the two clans to look at Naruto in confusion. What the hell was he trying to find out? Sonya was looking at Naruto with distrust. Amachi had the original assumption, but later concluded they had no relation. The Leviathan had more capabilities than the Yuki clan ever showed from recorded documents. What do you mean? Naruto asked in confusion. They can freely manipulate ice without hand signs and do it with some strange energy they're apparently able to absorb into their bodies. Naruto was very close to dropping the man in shock as his eyes widened to the size of dinner plates. Wait, is he saying the Leviathan and Styri clans use magic? No, I need to tread carefully with this. They may not appreciate me nosing into their business. Plus I still have no proof to back this up. What did Amachi do with this information? Amachi was fascinated by this energy, and did research on how to generate or manipulate this energy. When that failed, he tried dissecting several members. What you see in the cages is what's left of the two clans. Naruto's grip on the scientist's throat tightened ever so slightly as growled at the man. He could see from the corner his eyes, several of the prisoners sobbing at remembering their lost comrades. What about the other clan? He asked. The other clan are some red heads that come from the Uzumaki clan. What? He shouted. The original Naruto was going through the corridor he chosen as discreetly as possible. He soon reached a wooden door in a large hallway along his path. He slowly opened the door, and peeked inside. He looked around to see nothing, but rows of tubes inside with no one in sight. Naruto slowly went in as he looked around and examined to see the tubes were filled with what looked like deformed human fish-like hybrids. As he was about to touch a tube, the floor below gave out, revealing a trap door. Naruto had little time to react as he fell down the trap door. Elsewhere, Ari and Altair were being surrounded by several deformed humans. Hey, Ari, can you feel it? Altair asked. Ari's eyes narrowed as she let out a low growl. Yeah, these people have a corrupted version of senjutsu in their bodies. The worst part is that it's not in balance with their chakra and has caused them to go completely insane. Let's not forget those missing islanders that have been turned into those fish monsters. These guys, however, also have senjutsu implanted in them and have turned in mindless monsters. Meaning the only way to put them out of their misery is to kill them. Ari nodded. Yeah. Suddenly Ari felt Naruto trying to contact her through their connection. Ari, can you hear me? What's wrong, Kit? I found the prisoners and I'm taking them out of the island. Have you relayed this message to your original? He should be aware. Okay. There's something you should know. Some of these prisoners belong to clans. Two of which I think are able to use magic, and there are some girls that belong to the Uzumaki clan. What? Ari shouted out loud, surprising Ultir and the rest. Ari dodged a surprised attack due to her distraction and quickly cut off the poor bastard's head off his body. Yeah, I was just as surprised. I'm taking them all out, along with another guy the first found from Kiri. Okay, good luck, Naruto-kun. Please be careful. I promise, Ari-chan. Ari cut the link as she focused on the enemy in front of her. What's up? A curious Ultir asked. Naruto's clones found the prisoners and is getting them out. Ari responded. Ultir blinked in confusion. Why the freak out? He found 3 clans also being held prisoner. 2 of the clans he believes are magic users, and there are some girls from the Uzumaki clan. Are you serious? Ultir shouted in shock. She did not think they'll meet any clans that use magic so soon. Then again, Naruto-kun seems to have kami-blessed luck when it involves stuff like this. Yeah, I was just as surprised. But we need to focus on our current issue. Ultir nodded. Right. She said as the C duo continued the vicious beatdown on the mindless monsters. So your name is Suigetsu, and you want to resurrect the 7 swordsmen of the mist and be their new leader? Naruto inquired. Right. Suigetsu answered. And, you want to find Zabuza's blade, since he was your senpai, and it was meant to be passed to you if he stayed in Kiri. Right. Again. And do tell me, how do you plan to do all this with Kiri still in a civil war? Suigetsu shrugged his shoulders. Hey, I never said it would be easy. But where's the fun of just finding them? That makes getting the blades more fun. Naruto was in deep thought. If he got Suigetsu to join him, he could get some info on Kiri. It could be outdated, but any info from a swordsman of the mist could be very valuable. The question was how to get him to agree. He knew of only one way of getting him to join, but he really was not a fan of the idea. But it was the only idea he had to convince him to join his cause, and this would speed his plans to honor Zabuza and Haku. What if I were to tell you I could give you one of the blades? Specifically, Zabuza's blade. Naruto finally said. Suigetsu blinked in his tank. What? I can get you the blade, but I require something from you. What do you want? Suigetsu asked with a suspicious tone. The last thing he wanted was to become someone else's lab rat. Nothing much for now, but we'll talk later. Suigetsu thought about this. If he was being serious, then this could be his first steps to bringing back the 7 swordsmen. But how did he know if he could trust this guy? How do I know you're not pulling my leg? Zabuza's blade was used as his grave marker and I know exactly where it is. Suigetsu couldn't see Naruto's eyes, but his body language and tone told him he was not lying. Well, going with him is better than staying here. Get me out and get me the sword and we'll talk, he said. Naruto nodded. Right. Naruto said before smashing the tube and freeing Suigetsu. At least you got boxers on. Naruto commented on the former imprisoned teen's appearance. Suigetsu snorted. That was my only luck being stuck there. Let's get out of here. Don't have to tell me twice. Who are you? Sona asked for the 100th time. This is not the time or place for this conversation. So would you please just get on the seals? Naruto said impatiently. While Naruto could transport small groups of people, large groups like this caused him to use seals to help him. Thankfully he left a teleportation seals outside the cave in case of anything. Why should we trust you? Rainer said. Naruto was getting impatient. Are you kidding me? Would you rather become breeding for that bastard, Amachi? Watch you tone, asshole. You know nothing of what we have suffered. Do you know who you're talking to? Sona said in an arrogant tone. Sona was then bombarded by a strong ki that caused everyone to buckle to their knees. They looked to see the looming body of Naruto looking down at them as lighting danced around him. Even with mask on, they could tell he was pissed. Who the hell do you think you are? I go out of my way to save your asses and this is the thanks I get. Naruto was seriously getting tired of having to deal with people like this. He understood they've gone through shit, but did they really think that entitled them to say shit like that to him? Naruto would have said more if he was not insured by chains colored yellow and white. He turned his head to see two of the Uzumaki girls using their chains against him. Hey, don't yell at her! Shouted Karen. Don't even think about moving. Those chains will hold you down. Hinoka said. Naruto just sighed in annoyance before he released his own, silver, chains that broke the ones binding him. This shocked the red-headed girls to the core. You have sea chains. But that's impossible, Karen said. The only way you could have is if you are. Rika began as Naruto nodded. Yeah, I am an Uzumaki. I am half on my mother's side, he said. But why the black hair? Morgiana asked. It's a disguise to make sure no one will recognize me. So why are you here? Akino asked, trying to be considerate to their savior. It was the least she could do. I came here to find the missing islanders and to discover more about Amachi's connection to Orochimaru. But you guys are taking my priority at the moment. Naruto then looked at them again. Now can you all please get on the seals? Sona and several others were still hesitant, but Serafal walked up to him. The two stared at one another in silence. Everyone watched the interaction with anticipation, wondering what will happen. I trust you, Serafal finally said with a smile. Everyone from the two clans looked shocked at her declaration. Nay-san, Sona said with disappointment. So-chan, if wasn't for, Serafal began before pausing. She blushed as she did not know what to call their savior. You can call me Menma for now, Naruto said, noticing her dilemma. Serafal nodded in appreciation. If it weren't for Menma-kun, we would all still be in those cages. This is our only chance out of here. So let's take it, she said. I agree with the girl. I rather go with him than stay here, said one of the newly freed mermen. Sona and several others looked between Menma and the ones on the seal before finally sighing in defeat. All right, you win. Sona relented. Serafal smiled in appreciation. Naruto nodded. Everyone now on the seals. Let's go. That was the clone's last words as everyone was teleported out of the underground laboratory. I can't believe for such an obvious trap. The girls are never gonna let me live this down. Naruto stood up as two men fell down across from him. It was the one of the goons from earlier, and they were probably the ones tailing him yesterday. Looks like we have a catch. Too bad it's only one, but I guess we could share beating him to a pulp. Naruto glared as he flared his power, causing the two to falter a bit. If you are so sure, come at me. It will be the last thing you'll do, he warned darkly. The two shivered before regaining their confidence. You got quite the arrogance there. Reminds me of the Uchiha. Naruto growled. Arms stretched to grab hold of him, but Naruto jumped back. The other came behind, and grabbed his arm. Naruto felt a small bit of his chakra being absorbed before he kicked him away. Now I remember these two. They were Kabuto's teammates in the Chunin exams. What were their names? Yoroi and Masumi, I think. Yoroi kept trying to grab him to siphon his chakra. However, he was soon captured by the legs by Masumi, who gave a grin. Yoroi then grabbed Naruto on his head and began to siphon off his chakra, but Naruto barely felt anything. What the hell? How much chakra do you have? An incredulous Yoroi asked. More than you could ever understand, he said. Naruto was soon enveloped in an electrical current. Raiden. Electrical pulse. The duo of idiots shouted in pain as they were sent flying from the force of the jutsu. Naruto then made several hand signs before he began charring lightning chakra to his hand. He then made a beeline for Yoroi. Chidori. Yoroi was dead the second after his chest was pierced by the Chidori. No, Yoroi. You bastard. I'll kill you. Naruto empowered his kunai and shuriken with wind chakra before throwing them. Shadow Shuriken Jutsu. Shadow Kunai Jutsu. Naruto shouted. Masumi managed to maneuver through some of the attacks, but still got cut by the rest of the kunai and shuriken. Masumi managed to get in front of Naruto as he wrapped himself around the masked teen, and began to squeeze. I'm gonna make your death slow and painful. Masumi growled. You've got one chance to let me go or die a very painful death. Naruto darkly said. Masumi released an obnoxious laugh. Ha! You must be really losing it to say that. Masumi mocked. Naruto soon began to collect wind chakra into his right hand. I warned you. Naruto whispered. Futen. Wind scar. Naruto shouted. Several sharp blades of wind erupted from Naruto's right arm as they tore through Masumi's body. The man had little time to react as his limbs were cut off and then his entire body was sliced into bits and pieces. By the time the jutsu ended, all that was left of the man known as Masumi was a giant pool of blood with chunks of the man's body scattered along the floor. Nausea began to fill Naruto as he stared at the gruesome sight before him. The stench of the raw flesh and spilled blood caused him to go over the edge as he dropped to his knees, before ripped the fox mask off as he vomited all over the floor. He continued to spill his guts for a few minutes before all that he could do was heave heavily as stayed on his hands and knees, shaking. Naruto could vaguely hear something. Naruto. It sounded like a voice. Naruto-kun. Naruto was beginning to release someone was calling him. Naruto-kun. Naruto jumped as he recognized the voice. Ari-chan. Naruto-kun, are you okay? I don't know. What happened? I used the wind scar on an enemy. Single quote. I see. I can guess it left a gruesome for you to see. Why yeah. Naruto choked out. He soon felt a warmth filling his body. It was Ari's chakra. Ari thankfully leaves a portion of her chakra inside of Naruto in case of any emergency and she can manipulate it when necessary for Naruto. Naruto-kun, I know how traumatizing it can be. But you need to focus. Finish this mission, and then you can let yourself go. But please bury this for now. Naruto stayed quiet for a few seconds. He did not expect that much damage from his attack, even at low power. He was just planning to cut his limbs, not rip him to pieces. But was the alternative any better? What was he gonna do? Leave him on the floor without his limbs, or put him out of his misery? Regardless of what he did, the results would remain the same. I understand, Ari-chan. Okay. See you soon, Naruto-kun. Naruto then cut his connection with his partner. He needed to get up and save everyone else. Naruto sighed as he slowly stood up as he put his mask back on. He flinched as he looked down to see his right arm shaking. He frowned under his mask. He still did not have enough control over the wind scar, which caused unnecessary damage to his arm. Hopefully he regains feeling soon. Naruto then began to take out several explosive notes from his storage seals. There was some work to do. Tayuya and Hinata finally reached the end of their corridor. Finally, I was getting tired of all this walking. Tayuya said. Me too. Hinata replied. See anything? She asked. Only two. One is Isaribi and the other looks like that Amachi fellow. The girls then busted the door down. Ah well, it seems we have some unwanted guests. Isaribi, be a good girl and take care of them. Why are you following this guy? He's just using you. Hinata shouted, hoping to get through to Isaribi, but she just shook her head. Like I told Menma, I have no choice. If I help him, he'll rid me of this curse. He won't cure you. He hasn't made a cure. He's just using you. Tayuya shouted, frustrated at this girl's stubbornness. She could give Naruto a run for his money. No, you're wrong, he promised. She insisted. Suddenly Ari and Altair came from the door. About time, Tayuya said in an annoyed tone. Sorry, we got preoccupied. Altair teased. Oh, more guests. This should be. Amachi began before. Boom. An explosion rocked the cave as the nearby wall collapsed and out from the dust came Naruto. Menma. Sorry I'm late. Had to take care of some annoying pests. Ah, so you're Menma. I was expecting someone more intimidating. Amachi mocked. I could say the same to you. Naruto retorted. Give up, you're surrounded. Hinata warned. Amachi had the nerve to laugh. And why would I do that? I am close to my next scientific breakthrough. I can't stop now. Well then you and your research can go up in smoke. Kai. Naruto shouted. Explosions could be heard everywhere as the cave soon began to crumble around them. However, Amachi seemed undeterred at this development. Oh, good job, but it will take more than blowing this island to slow my research down. Looks like it's time to relocate. Come, Isaribi. The two began to walk away. The team tried to stop them, but the ceiling above them soon collapsed, blocking them from following the duo. Let's go, we can catch up later. Ari said. The group nodded as they teleported out of the cave. Come one, we need to stop them, before they stop the next trading ship. And this time Amachi will die. Naruto growled. Hinata and Tayuya seemed concerned at Naruto's tone, while Ari used her mental link to soothe her vessel as much as possible. The team reunited with the freed prisoners. Naruto told them to head to the main island to reunite with their families and warn them about Amachi. Many protested as they wanted to fight, but Naruto said they have been through enough and to let them handle this. Before anyone could voice their displeasure, Naruto's team ventured off to take care of Amachi for good. They eventually reached the merchant ships, with most of them having been destroyed and sinking into the ocean. Amachi was pleased with the progress until Naruto and his girls appeared before him. Amachi simply sighed in annoyance. You're a stubborn group, you know that, he said. This time, we will stop you for good. Naruto growled. You seem rather confident. Isaribi. Isaribi in her Kaima form jumped out of the water and got between the two sides. Well then, before we begin, let me bring in a special guest. Amachi said with a sinister smile. Amachi then brought out a seal and opened to reveal a seal. Kai. Out of the smoke came a tall orange-haired teen in chains. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce you to Jugo. The origin of the curse mark of Orochimaru. Origin of the curse mark. Everyone muttered in confusion. You see, Jugo comes from a clan that is able to naturally absorb natural energy into their bodies through their skin. However, it seems they easily susceptible to becoming rampaging beasts. Everyone's eyes widen, while Aries and Altair's narrowed. Orochimaru was fascinated by this and studied Jugo and using his own knowledge of Senjutsu to create the curse mark of today. I'm sure you noticed some of the failed experiments in the labs. They lost any sense of logic. They were nothing more than insane beasts. Altair said. Amachi just waved her off. Science requires some sacrifice to advance. Naruto let loose a burst of Ki and chakra. Enough. You have spoken enough for one lifetime. Naruto snarled. Indeed, the time for talk is over. Jugo. The restraints on the teen were released. He looked up at the group with a maniacal grin. Kill them all, Amachi said as Jugo began to laugh like a maniac. Ha 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 ha. I hope you bastards are ready to die. Jugo maniacally screamed as his arms soon began to morph into a monstrous form with axes on the sides. Ari and I will handle Jugo. Hinata and Tayuya will handle Isaribi. Menma, take care of Amachi. Ultir told everyone. With pleasure. Naruto said as everyone split off for their battles, leaving only Amachi and Naruto. Well, it seems it's just you and me now, Menma. Not for long. Naruto growled. Amachi just laughed as he took out 2 syringes. Allow me to show you the achievement of have I made with my own body. Amachi then stabs himself with the syringes as the liquids entered his body. Amachi soon starts to convulse as his began to grow and his muscles began bulging. His skin became white and gray, his hands and feet became claws, a fin grew on his back, his teeth become sharp and serrated, his eyeballs became jet black. By the end of the transformation he looked like a 10 feet tall bipedal shark. Think of King Shark from the CW's Flash. Feast your eyes on the fusion of my Kamiya project and Orochimaru's curse mark. Naruto just looked annoyed. Why am I always facing people with a shark motif? First Zabuza, then Kisame, and now this guy. Did I piss off some fish god in another life? Ready to die. Naruto expelled some electricity. You first. He challenged. Naruto then dashed in a burst of speed and landed a haymaker on the Amachi's face. But to his shock, Amachi barely registered the hit. I thought you would have more to offer, he said in a disappointed tone before reeling his fist back. This how you punch. Naruto barely managed to dodge as the shark's fist slammed into the floor of the ship and destroyed a good portion of the ground around them. Enhanced super strength. Reminds me of Tsunade. Suddenly he disappeared again and reappeared in front of Naruto. Naruto's eyes widened at the speed before he was hit the gut by the enlarged fist and was sent flying into the ocean. Naruto-kun. Hinata shouted in concern. It's over, he can't win. Isaribi said. She got 2 heavy glares and growls from Hinata and Tayuya. Quiet you. I'm not the one tied down by chains at the moment. The hot-headed redhead shouted. She then turned to see Hinata looking on in concern before placing an arm on her shoulder. Relax. Naruto can handle this. She reassured her. But he's all alone. He has us, and we'll help him when he needs it, but he handled that giant piece of sushi. Ari and Ultir already finished their fight and haven't done anything, because they know Naruto can handle this. Hinata nodded, but still looked on in concern. Naruto-kun is struggling. Ultir said. Relax, I know my kit can handle this. Ari said. Meanwhile, Naruto had still not risen from the ocean. Come on boy, don't tell me all those threats were for boasting. Amachi mocked. Suddenly several dragons of water appeared and made a beeline for Amachi. Is that all you can hit me with? Water dragons? Amachi slammed his fist into the water dragon and caused it to explode. However, Amachi noticed something was wrong. His concerns were confirmed when he saw a number of gashes and cuts on his arm and forearm. What the hell? He was cut from his musing when another, much bigger water dragon slammed into his chest. He could feel several gashes ripping his chest open as he slid across the water's surface. Before he could react, Naruto jumped out of the water with a sphere of chakra on his hand. Rasengan. The sphere was slammed into Amachi's chest as he was sent even further back as he sank into the ocean in a giant boom as the water rose into the sky. Naruto continued to wait to see if that finished the battle. However, that went out the window as he heard some chuckling as Amachi appeared on his feet again. I must say I underestimated you. That attack was quite damaging. If it weren't for my transformation I would be dead. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the transformed scientist. How are you still standing? No transformation could be that powerful. You forget I used young Jugo's DNA in this transformation along with some of those Uzumaki girls. Their DNA came an incredible life force and an amazing healing factor. I can heal from any injury, so unless you got something that can disintegrate me, you have no chance. Naruto released an inhuman growl from his throat at that. This is the first time I actually hate my genes. I am going to kill this bastard for using my clan for his sick experiments. Naruto snarled in his head. Shall we continue? Amachi mocked before going through some hand signs. Sweden. Water gun. Raiden. Zaker. The two attacks of water and lightning collided, causing an explosion in their arena. The two stared at one another, waiting for the other to make the next move. Just be honest, you had no intention of curing Isaribi and the others. You were just using them until they solved their purpose before you got rid of them. Don't deny it, since I got it from one of the guards. Amachi just scoffed. So what if I was going to throw them away? They were tools. And like any tool, when they are no longer useful, you throw them away and get a new one. Besides, Isaribi was just so pathetic. I had no intention of healing her or the others. I made up that little lie to her about a cure, and she's on her hands and knees begging me for it. Saying she'll do anything to get the cure. I wished I let my partners have some fun with her before now, and at least she would have been useful one more time. But, oh well, we can't have everything, right? Isaribi was shell-shocked as she couldn't believe what she just heard. Everything I did was all a lie, she whispered in horror. Now then, let's get on with our battle. Amachi jumped into the water. Naruto looked around before Amachi came out and slashed Naruto on his back. Ah! Amachi jumped into the water again. Naruto tried to find him again, but he cut across his chest for his efforts. This continued for several minutes as Naruto was cut and slashed again and again. Finally Amachi rose up as Naruto was bloody with several gashes all over his body and blood was oozing from the bottom of his mouth and down his mask, and the left eye piece of the mask was ripped off, revealing his eye. Amachi looked interested at what he was seeing. Well, this is interesting. You're an Uchiha. Amachi hummed. Your point. Naruto snapped. I thought all of you were killed off years ago. Reports have been greatly exaggerated. Well, this is interesting. First I meet that Uchiha with Orochimaru and now I meet you. So Sasuke and Orochimaru were here. Oh well, less trouble for us. Now then, I've had some fun, but it's time to kill you. Amachi dashed at Naruto with his clawed hands extended to pierce his chest. Suddenly, a wall of water appeared in front of Naruto. Like that will stop me. Amachi said. Amachi pierced the wall and went right through Naruto. Ha, I win, brat. Amachi shouted in a gleeful tone. However, Amachi's victory was short-lived as he could tell something was wrong as Naruto just smiled before turning into electricity. Ah! Amachi grunted as his entire body was enveloped in electricity. A lightning shadow clone, Amachi said in shock. Suddenly several clones jumped out of the water as they held onto him. Then another Naruto came out with his hand soon becoming coated in lightning. Chidori. He stabbed Amachi in his lower abdomen. Naruto then jumped before making a seal with one hand. Kai. Then all of the clones glowed before they all exploded in an electrical flash on Amachi. The deformed Sharkman was sent flying back from the explosion. As Amachi tried to stand as his skin was swizzling from the burns he received from the electrical explosion. He looked up to see Naruto with most of his wounds gone. How are you healed? Amachi said in shock. Naruto just smirked under his mask. Thank my mother's side of the family along with some special gifts I have. Naruto teased. Amachi just growled. That won't be enough to stop me, boy, as he stood up. Naruto noticed there was still a noticeable hole where Amachi was pierced with the Chidori. Naruto examined Amachi's body as he saw electrical currents still going around his body. This gives Naruto an idea. Raiden. Zakuruga. The beam was similar to a regular Zaker, but it was condensed into a spiral beam. Amachi just laughed. That attack won't work. Sweden. Water gun. The two attacks collided, but to the shock of Amachi, the Zakuruga pierced through the water attack and landed a direct hit on him. In the exact location where he was hit by the Chidori that was still open. He then felt surging pain as he felt his insides get electrocuted as the attack went through his body and then out of it. Amachi fell to his hands and knees. Even with the healing factor, he could feel the damage was significant enough to take some time to recover. He looked down to his lower abdomen to see the gaping hole still present. He also noticed electricity still going through him. Why am I still in pain with electricity? He muttered to himself. Then he remembered something about the explosion. Wait, the clones. Naruto smirked. That's right. The clones were charged with electricity when they went off. I hope that you being soaked with water would increase the damage due to water being a huge conductor for lightning. But when it didn't do enough damage, I noticed some electricity remained and decided to use it to my advantage. The Zakuruga is a lot stronger than a regular one, and is able to absorb electricity to make itself stronger. Amachi growled. You planned this from the get-go. Charge me with electricity to get your attack to get stronger as it went through, damaging internally and externally. Amachi accused. Naruto just looked amused. Maybe. Now give up, or you can resist and I kill you. Please choose resistance. Naruto growled. Amachi growled back in defiance. Like I will lose you. I still have my last trump card. Come Yumibozu. Suddenly a giant blob of water came up from below Naruto. What the foo? Naruto was cut off as he enveloped by the blob. Naruto-kun. Hinata shouted in worry. What the hell is that? Tayuya asked in disgust at the creature. Behold my loyal servant, the Yumibozu. A water demon I discovered years ago that obeys all my commands. With him in the seas and this body I will be invincible. I will be king of the seas. Suddenly parts of Yumibozu began to be frozen in ice. What the hell? Suddenly chains grabbed Amachi by the wrist and ankles. Suddenly Sona and Seraphal appeared around Yumibozu with Karen and Hinoka holding Amachi in place. Morgiana and Rika appeared by Hinata and Tayuya. Then Suigetsu appeared out of the water and stabbed him with a sword he found in one of his opened wound. Amachi coughed up some blood. What are all of you doing here? Hinata asked. We came to help. Rika responded. You ungrateful brats. We were on the threshold of a scientific breakthrough and this is how you repay me. Amachi asked in rage. Suigetsu scoffed. Screw you, Doc. You just saw us as lab rats. And it's time to pay. Suddenly an explosion of power got their attention. Yumibozu. Amachi shouted in horror. Naruto appeared in his dragon form. His body was covered in a black and blue aura as scales covered the visible parts of his body, but no wings appeared like before. Seraphal and the others that had arrived were shocked at the transformation. He's using it again. Ultir said. Hopefully he'll end this. Ari said. Suigetsu, Karen, Hinoka, let him go. This is my fight to finish. Naruto said in a distorted voice. The others were a bit concerned with Naruto and what he was asking of them. You sure, man? Suigetsu asked. Menma, we have him where want him. We can take him together. Karen said, but Naruto shook his head. Don't worry, I'll end this. He said. The three looked at one another before reluctantly moving away from Amachi. The moment the chains were gone, Naruto disappeared in a burst of speed before appearing in front of Amachi, and delivered a devastating haymaker to his fish face, and continued to do so for several minutes until Amachi had enough. I will not let end like this. he roared defiantly. The two began trading blows back and forth, but Naruto had the advantage. Naruto delivered a harsh fist to his gaping abdomen that made Itachi roar in agony. He clasped his arms and slammed them on Naruto's head, and the top part of mask broke off as blood spurted out of his head, and part of his hair turned blonde. Naruto staggered from the blow as Itachi was about to attack again, but Naruto caught both of his arms. Then Naruto looked at him with inhuman snarl on his face. Then the half-masked teen used an incredible amount of his chakra into his arms, and began to pull until... Snap. Squish. He ripped the arms right out of the arm sockets. Itachi wailed in pain as blood spewed from his body like crimson geysers. Everyone was left stunned at Naruto's brutality. Damn, Naruto is brutal, Tayuya said. He must still be pissed at what Itachi has done. Hinata explained. Damn, that is hot. Ari purred. Yeah, it is. Ultir said. Naruto then coated his left arm in wind chakra. Fuden. Wind scar. Itachi's chest was ripped open even more. Blood oozed out like a waterfall, and several organ and pieces of muscles and tissues were falling out. Naruto decided to end this for good as he began to concentrate. His chakra swirled into his right arm. He was forming a Rasengan, but was pouring more chakra than normal. Soon a Rasengan the size of a basketball was in his hand. That's a big Rasengan. Tayuya muttered in awe. This is the end. Odama Rasengan. The attack slammed into Itachi, and there was a flash before the mad scientist's body was ripped to pieces in violent explosion of blood, guts, and gore. Naruto was breathing heavily from the large amount of chakra he wasted, and the damage taken in the fight. Darkness soon began to settle in as his senses were shutting down. The last thing he could hear as he was losing consciousness were the shouts of people calling his name. Still got a lot to learn, Hikari. Yummy, Naruto said. What do you want? Naruto wearily asked. Just to say congratulations. Those were some amazing kills. Yami complimented. Ruthless, painful, and sadistic. I knew you had it in you. I did what was necessary. Naruto retorted. Keep telling yourself that. You know deep down you hated them. You wanted to kill them. You enjoyed killing them. You loved it. Just like you wished you could do the same to all those bastards in Konoha. Yami then gave Naruto a demonic smile. I know you all too well, Hikari. He said. Are we done? Naruto asked in exasperation. Yami just sighed at Hikari's stubbornness. If you want it to end, you could fight me. No, at least not yet. You can't wait forever. Maybe, but today is not that day. Whatever you say, Hikari. Naruto's world became black again. Naruto woke up to find himself on a small mattress. He looked to see all the girls around talking with one another. Hey everyone. He said softly as all the girls turned to see him awake. Naruto grunted in pain as they all jumped on top of him to glomp him in a hug. Naruto-kun. Hinata said in joy before smacking Naruto on the chest. Don't scare us like that again. Naruto nodded. What happened while I was out? Everyone is celebrating and rejoicing at the return of the missing villagers. Everyone even apologized to Isaribi for blaming her, although she keeping her distance and staying with the others. Naruto looked at Ultir. Did you confirm? Ultir nodded. Yeah, you were right, they do use magic. Naruto began rising out of the bed despite the protest of the girls until he was leaning on the wall to stand. Let's go talk to them, he said. The girls were going to deny this, but knew how stubborn he can be, and decided to help him stand as they went to find everyone in the living room talking. Suigetsu was the first to notice them. Looks who's up. Nice to see you up, boss man. Suigetsu said with a smirk. Naruto smirked back. Likewise, Suigetsu. Well, who are you really? Serafal asked. Naruto sat down on one of the available couches. My real name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Everyone's eyes widen in shock. Wait, you're related to the Yondaime Hokage? An incredulous Sona asked. Naruto nodded. He's my father. That got everyone's jaw to drop onto the floor. Damn. Suigetsu summed up. Wait. What are you doing here? Why aren't you in Konoha? Akino asked in confusion. They were surprised to see the faces of their saviors darken in rage. Well, it went something like this. Naruto began before explaining how he was banished for the mission to bring back their renegade teammate and for being a Jinchuriki. Everyone was left shocked and disgusted by Konoha's actions. The Uzumaki girls were especially pissed off by how their brethren was treated. Damn, that's some bullshit. Suigetsu said. Naruto nodded. Indeed. Which comes to my proposal. This got the clan's attention. Which is? Serafal asked. Join me and become part of my village. The new Uzushiogakure. He said. The Uzumaki girls were shocked to hear that he wanted to bring back their ancestral home. Your clans would be adopted into the clan and can become part of Uzu as their royal pillars along with any other clan we can convince to join us, and Suigetsu here can create his swordsman group in Kiri or in Uzu if he wishes once he gets all the swords. Everyone was in deep thought. This could be a new beginning for all of them, especially for some of the villagers that were still transformed. They were being offered to become part of something new. Something great. I'm in. You seem to be a gaggle of fun. Suigetsu said. I will join as well. I would like a fresh start. Isaribi said as several other merpeople nodded. You have our support automatically with you bringing back Uzu. Hinoka said as the other Uzumaki girls nodded. Leviathan. Citri. Naruto asked as he looked at the remaining two groups. Serafal then walked up to Naruto before stretching her hand out. She smiled. We will join you as well. She said. Naruto smiled in return as she shook her hand. It seems the first clans to join have arrived and more to arrive soon. Naruto sighed as he laid on the grass as he gazed up at the morning sky. Now I see why Shikamaru enjoyed doing this so much. It had been around a few months since the new additions were made to his family, and everything was going well all things considered. Most of the new arrivals adapted rather quickly to their new environment. The mutated merpeople were welcomed with open arms by the land of waves. Since they couldn't reverse the transformations completely, Naruto suggested should make the most out of them. They easily became the best fishermen for the country and could easily travel to Uzu in minutes. Some of the ladies were easily taken to many of them. Isaribi was also adjusting to the new life. However, she didn't want to be just a simple civilian. She wanted to use her abilities to help her new friends. This led to her decision of asking everyone if she could be trained to be a shinobi. The other accepted her and Suigetsu along with open arms in the training. Now Suigetsu was a bit odd case to deal. The first thing he did when arriving at Wave was asking Naruto where Zabuza's grave was. Naruto knew he had to uphold his end of the agreement and took him to the grave site. It was highly amusing to see Suigetsu's gobsmacked face when he laid eyes on the sword. I guess he still believed Naruto would backstab him, which in hindsight, Naruto could hardly fault him for not believing him. The biggest surprise for Naruto was that Suigetsu did not immediately run and take the sword from the grave. Instead, he walked over and slowly took the blade before chanting a few words. Before sheathing the sword and walking back with Naruto. It was the final chant. A way of passing the torch from one swordsman to another. Then there was Jugo. Oh boy, Jugo was a hassle, but not through any fault of his own. Due to his clan's unique biology, he would go out into regular episodes of rage. Thankfully Ari and Altair developed a seal to suppress this bloodline until they helped Jugo control those abilities without fear of going into a blind rage. Although they did give him the ability to switch the seals off when he is in combat. Naruto and his fellow Uzumaki sisters that had the chain ability learned to use them to restrain Jugo until he calmed down from his psychotic episodes of rage. Naruto had to smile when he thought about his fellow Uzumaki sisters. Karen was originally from Kusagaker and actually participated in the Chunin exams at the same Naruto and Hinata were. When asked why she didn't proceed, she explained that her team got killed in the Forest of Death and she would have joined them if Sasuke hadn't saved her. This started a small infatuation with the boy, but that died after hearing what he did to her family. She then explained how a few months after that her village was attacked and she was kidnapped. She later found out that the one that orchestrated the kidnapping was Orochimaru, and then she was sent off to that lab with Amachi. Lisbeth had a similar backstory, except she lived with her mother in hot water country. Although she never knew her father, her mother explained that he was not an Uzumaki, thus the pinkish hair, and where her skills with weapon forging and blacksmith came from. One day her home was invaded and that was the last she saw of her mother. Hinoka explained she was an orphan and did not know much of her parents. They did leave her with some journals that explained her heritage and the legacy she has to uphold. She was working with some scientists to create the ultimate summoning beast, but the beast went berserk and destroyed the entire lab. The last thing she saw before blacking out was debris collapsing on her. When she awoke, she was caged by that bastard Amachi. Then came the Leviathan and Cetri clans. Those two had the most difficult time adjusting to everything. Not because they weren't welcomed. The people of Nami welcomed all the newcomers with open arms. The problem was that many were still not very open to everyone due to the time they spent imprisoned. The most guarded were mostly the Cetri clan, especially Sona, as she still had trouble trusting Naruto. Although thankfully her sister was more than willing to be the intermediate to bring peaceful discussions. Naruto was very much considered making her head of foreign affairs since she seemed to thrive in the environment. Seraphal giggled and said she'll do anything for her savior. That was another thing Naruto noticed. The Leviathan clan were gigantic perverts, flirts. Seraphal, Akino, and Rainer would flirt and tease him on a constant and regular basis every time he passes by one of them. Hell, they would go out of the way to sneak a peek at his body, and sometimes try to cup a feel somewhere. Hell, they somehow convinced Hinata and the others to help them. Needless to say, it left him twitchy for several days. However, Naruto noticed that Seraphal was a lot more upfront with her flirting and seemed more clingy to him compared to the other girls. Hinata told Naruto that she may have gained a crush on him. Naruto said that this could have been hero worship. Hinata retorted that there was a spark of genuine affection for him, but Naruto wasn't sure what to do, because he didn't want to risk both of them getting hurt. Hinata suggested that he could get to know her, and where this affection goes. Maybe she'll even become another harem sister, which caused both of them to blush red. The Leviathan clan consisted of Seraphal, Akino, Rainer, Baraquile, Shuri, Danasik, Mittite, and Kalawarner. While the Cetri clan consisted of Sona, Momo, Tsubaki, Roswise, Saji. Naruto was confused by how Seraphal and Sona were sisters, but part of different clans. Seraphal explained they were half-sisters, having the same mother, but different fathers. However, that meant little to them as they acted like sisters. Although Seraphal tended to be rather clingy when it comes to Sona, much to the latter's embarrassment. They were a colorful group of people and Naruto could say he got along with everyone in both clans. Naruto sighed as he thought about the two biggest events that occurred these past few months. The first one was going to the village hidden under the stars and revealing a conspiracy being committed by the Hoshikage. Apparently, the village was founded based on a meteorite, the locals called a star, landed close to 100 years ago. It was through this meteorite that the village was built around. Later, the shinobi of the village discovered that the meteorite emitted chakra-enhancing radiation and learned to harness it. It was the Shadaime Hoshikage that devised a training method that allowed his shinobi to absorb this radiation and gain supernatural levels of chakra. However, with this great power comes great risk. The Sandaime Hoshikage discovered that the chakra of the meteorite took too much of a toll on the user's body. Such overuse would cause the body to become corrupted and decay, which eventually would lead to the user's death. The Sandaime would ban the practice of the training, but he would later be assassinated by a power-hungry idiot by the name of Akahoshi. Akahoshi wanted the village to be recognized as one of the great villages along with the other 5 and reinstated the star training. The guy was a power-hungry creep, and Naruto had no complaints in kicking his ass and ending the star training for good, which involved Naruto blooming the thing up to Kingdom Come. It was rather satisfying. In the end, several shinobi were saved from being corrupted by the star training, a tyrant was taken down, and Uzu got a new ally supporting them. Next was going to the Land of Spring to meet up with Princess Kyuki. It was an interesting experience, to say the least. It was a fun reuniting with Kyuki and catching up with everything that's happened these past few months. Kyuki said that her country had been expanding its technology to encompass the entire country and not just near the capital. One showcase was expanding the railroad system so it passed through nearly every city within the country. This would decrease travel time of transporting goods between towns and increase their efficiency for trading. Kyuki and her top engineers were even thinking of allowing the trains to be used for domestic travels by the people, but there were some kinks to still work out on that project. The same can be said with the blimps that Spring had in inventory. Naruto was honestly by how far the Land of Spring took their advancements. He still remembered how sore his legs felt from trying to outrun that damn train. So using them for transportation was an ingenious idea. Kyuki asked what is Naruto's plan regarding Konoha. Naruto explained that he'll leave Konoha alone for now. He did not have the resources yet to deal with that village, yet. Once Uzu has risen to power, that's when we'll deal with them directly. Koyuki asked Naruto what will happen if Konoha tries to get him back. Sooner or later, they may want to get their Jinchuriki back, something that disgusted Koyuki to no end. Naruto says he has a plan to keep Konoha off his trail for some time. After much talks, Naruto and the girls decided to relax for the time they had. Naruto was enjoying some time in the hot springs. That was until Ari and a few of the girls came out and joined. This got very bad for our blonde hero. Flashback. This feels nice. Naruto mused as he allowed himself to sink into the water. Naruto sighed in content. With how hectic things have, Naruto has not had a lot of time to rest and relax like this. I could get used to this, he said out loud. I agree, Naruto-kun, a smooth voice said. Naruto quickly turned and his face turned tomato red at what he was seeing. Standing a few feet from him were Ari, Hinata, and Seraphal. All of them without clothes with only a towel covering their modesty. What are you doing here? Naruto asked in a panicked tone. Ari merely gave a small grin of amusement. This is a co-ed bath, Naruto-kun. We thought you could use the company. That isn't a problem, right Naruto-kun? Hinata asked with a small blush. You wouldn't send us away, right? Naruto gulped as he saw the 3 girls give him those big puppy eyes with quivering lips. He knew that resistance was futile at that moment. No, of course not. You can come in and enjoy the bath as well. Naruto said in a nervous tone. Yay. The 3 girls cheered as they got into the water. Naruto stiffens as Ari gets right behind him. He could feel the warmth that was coming out of her body. I'm not bothering you, right, Naruto-kun? She asked. Naruto gulped. No, You could never bother me, Ari. He replied, but not daring to look back. However, if he did, he would have seen the gleam in Ari's eyes as she gains a small, seductive smirk on her lips. I am so glad. It means we can enjoy each other's company, she purred. Naruto shivered as he felt her blow behind his ear. You like that? Naruto gulped as he nodded. Ari then got closer to his ear. Good. I hope you enjoy this, she whispered. Naruto slightly jumped as he felt her hands get rather close to his thighs. Ari? He asked in a nervous tone. She hummed in question. I. Naruto tried to say something, but it came out as a garbled mess. Something wrong? She asked in a fake confused tone. No. Not exactly, but. Ari giggled at her vessel. Don't worry, I'll make sure you enjoy this. Naruto could feel her hands close to his delicate areas as he could feel himself heat up like an inferno. Naruto then felt two pairs of arms grab him. He turns to see Hinata and Seraphol looking at him with big puppy eyes with quivering pouts. Naruto-kun, we're here too, Hinata said. It's rude not to pay attention to us, Seraphol said. Don't worry, Naruto could make some clones to entertain everyone, Ari suggested. Naruto felt his entire body go red, with Hinata getting cherry red with Seraphol getting a slight nosebleed. Really, Naruto? Would you mind? Seraphol asked in an excited tone. Can I get one as well? Hinata asked with a twinkle of excitement in her eyes. Naruto was getting dizzy from the girls' antics as he heard another voice interrupt them. Is this an exclusive party or could anyone join? Everyone turned and Naruto felt his heart pick up the pace again. There stood Kyuki with her hair in a bun with only a towel covering her body. Nonsense. Of course, you can join. The more the merrier, right, Hinata? Ari asked as she looked at the lavender-eyed girl. Hinata squeaked before nodding her head. That's right. I don't mind, Seraphol said. Kyuki smiled at the girls before looking at Naruto. Naruto's shore of CC course. Naruto stuttered out. Kyuki then got as she took a position in front of Naruto as she enjoyed the warm sensation from the waters. All Naruto could just stare at how prime her body was. No ounce of fat was on her, but she had a slim, but firm frame. Being an actress must help her keep in shape. Kyuki saw Naruto's staring and smiled. So Naruto? She asked as Naruto did his best to look at her face and not her body. About you taking multiple wives, Koyuki started as Naruto felt his heartbeat go up a few notches. Yes, he said nervously as Koyuki gave him a sly smile. I was wondering if I could join as well. He shouted. All the girls giggled in amusement. Is it shocking? You are seen as a hero in this country, not to mention it's thanks to you that my eyes were open. Plus I will need to conceive a child eventually. Who better to help me than the hero of these lands? Kyuki then got very close to Naruto, with Naruto getting a near-perfect view of her cleavage that was squished on his chest. So Naruto, will you help me produce an heir? That was the stimulation Naruto could take as he promptly fainted as all the girls giggled in amusement again. All in all, he had a rather productive meeting in Spring Country. End of flashback. Naruto blushed at the memory before he shook his head as he sat up to calm himself down. He then took out something from his pockets. It was a familiar dark blue handle from his mission to the land of tea. The Raijin no Ken. Apparently, the locals from the country found it and decided to give it to Naruto as he was the one to defeat Aoi. Unfortunately, the thing was damaged, so it could not be used properly yet. So Naruto's new goal was to learn about the seals used to create this weapon to understand how it works and maybe get it to function again. Unfortunately, that was easier said than done. He had no idea how the Nadaime ever created this weapon, as there weren't many mentions of the weapon in the academy or in Konoha's historical records. Plus any mentions of its creation and design would probably be in the Senju compound in Konoha, but Naruto believes he can find a solution with the scrolls and notes from his parents and clan. Naruto. Someone called to him. Naruto turned to see Karen came rushing towards with a slightly panicked look. Karen, what wrong? Come quick. Suigetsu is being unreasonable and you're the only one he'll listen to. Naruto sighed as he got up and the two rushed back to Tazuna's house. Naruto finds Suigetsu arguing with Hinoka and Lisbeth while everyone else is trying to calm them down. I said I'm going and that's final. Suigetsu said. You idiot, you need to hear if Naruto will approve of this. Hinoka said in an aggravated tone. Exactly. So you would stop thinking with your damn sword and use your brain for once. Lisbeth said as Suigetsu glared at her. Stay out of this, Berry-chan. He retorted as Lisbeth growled at him. Why you? Enough. Naruto shouted as he got tired of the back and forth. Now what the hell is this about? It all started about an hour ago when we found 3 men drifting near the shores. We immediately took them to receive medical attention. Thankfully, none of their injuries were life-threatening. Naruto nodded. I see. Go on. Well, we find out that they are from the Katabami gold mines in the land of rivers. The Katabami mines are one of the greatest mines in the land of river, and one of the richest sources of gold in all the elemental nations. However, about 6 months ago, some hooligans called the Kurosuke family appeared. They came under the disguise of providing protection before taking over the entirety of the mines. Anyone that was against them was buried alive or outright killed. Well, that's disturbing on numerous levels. But I am still not following why you're interested in this Suigetsu. Naruto asked as he turned to the white-haired swordsman. It's because of the guy leading this family. They said his name is Raiga, one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. Suigetsu said as Naruto nodded. So that's what this is about. But how are you so sure it's the same Raiga? It's because they explained the weapons that Raiga used. Twin slim, straight double-edged blades with upper curved blades near the tip on both blades and another pair near the base of the blades. That description matches the Kiba blades of Kiri. Naruto hummed in thought. Come on, please, this is a golden opportunity. Suigetsu pleaded. We could use this as leverage for negotiating with Kiri. Not to mention I could possibly get some info on Kisame from Raiga. Not to mention, after hearing it, not helping these people would leave a bad taste in my mouth. Naruto said out loud. Suigetsu drawled out. Yes, Suigetsu, we'll go to the land of rivers. Yes, Suigetsu said as he pumped his fist into the air. Everyone else merely rolled their eyes at his antics. However, you're not going without a team. I'm going since you're vulnerable to electricity. We'll also need a sensor and a heavy hitter. Naruto said sternly before turning to Karen and Jugo. Karen, you and Jugo are coming with us. Naruto said in a firm tone. What? Several people shouted. Are you sure? Jugo said in an uncertain tone. He didn't think he was ready for an actual mission yet. Naruto nodded. Yeah, everyone is currently busy. Plus it would be good to shake the team dynamics a bit. Naruto then turned to his furry partner. Ari, are you coming? He asked in a curious tone, but the fox lady shook her head. Unfortunately, no, I want to see how far you can go without my help. Nothing personal, Naruto-kun. But I want to see what you're capable of. Naruto nodded. Alright. Naruto then turned to his teammates for this mission. Get ready for a long trip, guys. Road to the land of rivers. It was a few days later that the 3 men were healthy enough to escort them back to their country. The trip was going to take a few days, but Rokusuke was adamant of getting back home as soon as possible to save someone by the name of Kanpachi who was buried alive when they left. Unfortunately, the man was probably dead at this point without any food or water. As they managed to get near a cliff connect to the mines, they decided to stop at a local curry shop. "Welcome travelers, how may I help you?" the old cook asked. "We were hoping if we could stay for the night. We will pay you handsomely," Naruto said politely. "Are you shinobi?" she asked as Naruto nodded. "Yes, we are on a mission currently." "I see. Well, you are welcome to stay. Please sit down. I'll make some of my special curry of life. Karashi, get a pot of curry ready," she shouted to the kitchen of the restaurant. "Hi grandma," shouted a voice back from the kitchen. Naruto nodded in appreciation. "Thank you." The group sat down to wait for their meals before planning out how they would infiltrate the mines. "So what's the plan?" Suigetsu quietly asked. "According to the three men, we'll just a jog from the mines. So we'll stay the night and then head early in the morning. Hopefully, we'll get some reconnaissance done, and from there plan out how we can take them out." "Agreed," his team said in unison. "Here you go, everyone," the old lady said as she and her grandson handled out the food. The food served was a black-colored curry that was boiling. Everyone looked rather nervous, even the stoic Jugo was sweating a bit. What exactly is this?" Naruto nervously asked. "I feel like I am going to die from this," Suigetsu said, which could actually be literal due to the biology of his body. "Or maybe something worse than death," Jugo muttered. "It CC can't be that bad, right?" Karen said in a hopeful tone. Although she was not being very convincing with her voice shaking. "Well, here goes nothing," Naruto said as he took a spoonful and swallowed with the rest doing the same. In an instant, all their faces went atomic red as their eyes popped out of their sockets. "Ga hhhhhhhh." Everyone shouted as they felt their bodies were literally on fire. "Good kami, that is hot," Naruto shouted. "Who the hell could stomach this?" Karen shrieked. Suigetsu looked like a boiling puddle of water, while Jugo looked like he fainted from the curry. "Well, this was created. I met two shinobi that were training here for days. One of them collapsed near my doorstep and I tried everything to wake him up, but nothing worked. That was until my grandson Karashi and I managed to create a curry that no one could sleep on. Thus the curry of life was born," Karashi explained as he came out of the kitchen. "Who were these Konoha shinobi?" Naruto asked in a curious tone, although he had a sneaking suspicion of who Karashi was talking about. Karashi smiled. "Rock Lee and Maida Guy." Naruto's sweat dropped at this. "Yep. It would be those two that could stomach this. Geez, those two definitely have stomachs made of steel." Suigetsu groaned as he finally regained some semblance of consciousness. Everyone nodded as Jugo awoke from his heat-induced coma. "Agreed," he muttered. "Everyone. Rokusuke is gone," one of the civilians shouted as his burst into Naruto's room. "What?" Karen and Suigetsu shouted in annoyance and shock. "He's probably gone into the town by now," explained the other civilian as Naruto growled in annoyance. "That idiot, let's go," he shouted as everyone ran out of the curry shop and headed straight to the mines. "Graveyard near the mines. Hold on, Kanpachi. I'll get you out," Rokusuke muttered as continued to dig to reach the coffin that held his friend. "Is that so?" a voice suddenly said from behind him. Rokusuke jumped as he turned to see a cloaked man a few feet from him. He finally regained his bearings as there were several men around him. "Ah!" he shouted as he tried to back up, only to realize as he looked around that he was completely surrounded. "Looks like we're gonna have another funeral," said the lead cloaked man, Raiga. "So that's the mine, huh?" Naruto said as he looked down to several of the townspeople have to move several bags or carts of stones that contained the material for the gold. "I can't wait to get my hands on Raiga," an eager Suigetsu said. Naruto tapped his shoulder to keep him from jumping down and start slashing away like a maniac. "Patience. Karen, what do you sense?" I can sense 6 chakra signatures. One is Rokusuke. The largest of the 6 has to be Raiga. Wait. I sense another signature with Raiga. It's a child. Karen began, before asking out loud in confusion. Huh. Never thought Raiga will have a kid. Suigetsu said in a stunned tone. Where is the child exactly? Naruto asked. It looks like he's on Raiga's back, but the vision is blurry. Maybe a genjutsu. From Raiga or the child? Jugo asked, but Karen shook her head. I can't tell. Naruto mused to himself. What's the plan, Naruto-kun? Karen asked. For now, let's observe the activities. There are plenty of followers that we may not be seeing. So let's move. There are 4 signatures close to the mines. A childish voice said from under the hood of the cloaked Raiga. Are they strong? He asked. Very. The child confirmed. I'll enjoy burying them. Raiga mused to himself as he moved into another location to greet his guests. Move it, old man, shouted one of the cloaked men as one of the elderly workers fell to the ground. This is terrible, Jugo said with a frown on his face. Naruto, we've got to do something, Karen said as she wanted to jump in and save the wounded man. Naruto stayed silent as he watched the man get chastised by the cloaked man. Naruto! Karen shouted again. Naruto turned to look at her. I know, but we can't risk blowing our cover so easily. That would defeat the purpose of what we're doing. Naruto said in slight frustration before looking back down and growling as the cloaked man was kicking the old man. However, I dislike seeing an old man beating like that, so let's go. Naruto shouted as the 4 dashed down to the area below. Naruto quickly knocked the first goon out as it alerted the other 4. What the hell? Said another goon. Who the hell are you? Suddenly the remaining goons were quickly dispatched by Karen, Suigetsu, and Jugo. Good Kami. The injured old man shouted in shock at what he just saw. Karen then approached the old man. Sir, are you? Karen started as she stretched her arm out to help the old man before the man slapped her hand away. What have you done? Listen, you need to beat me so that I won't get punished. Wait, sir, Karen said before the man began punching himself in the face. Forget it. I'll just beat myself up. The old man was about to bash his face in with a stone if Naruto had not grabbed his outstretched arm before he landed the blow. Hold it. I know about the Kurosuke family. We are here to help. Naruto tried to explain, but the old man was not listening to him. Suddenly they all hear a bell go off. They all turn to the direction of the bell. A bell? Karen asked. What does that mean? Naruto asked as he looked at the man. The old man looked down in sadness as tears began to fall from his eyes. It means another funeral has occurred. Every time that damn bell rings, it means that someone else is going to be buried. Poor Rokusuke, he said in a depressed tone. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he summoned several clones. Take the old man somewhere safe. Let's go, everyone. Naruto moved to the Kurosuke household to end this for good. I remember Rokusuke. He was so happy when I first came here and took down the magistrate, and removing all the taxes. He laughed so joyfully. He was truly happy seeing me. Ah, how I love funerals. They make me so nostalgic. Raiga preached to his audience as they lowered the coffin down into the ground. 4 are closing in, the child said. Raiga merely smiled in anticipation. Hey, more people to bury. What do you sense, Karen? Naruto asked as they hid behind a few large rocks. Rokusuke is in the coffin. But I am getting a foggy vision of Raiga and everyone else. Alright, move out, Naruto said as they all split off while Naruto dashed forward as he took out several smoke bombs. While Raiga and his men were finishing burying the coffin were suddenly enveloped in black smoke. What? Intruders! Several of the men shouted as Raiga disappeared. Naruto and his company easily dispatched of the minions with little difficulty. Karen used her sensory power to look for Raiga but was shocked when something seemed to be blocking her. Damn it! She shouted in annoyance. Everyone looked at her in concern. Karen, what happened? I wasn't sure before, but I can tell that the kid with Raiga or Raiga himself is screwing with my sensory abilities, Karen said as that made the other three get tense as they couldn't rely on Karen to find the enemy in this fight. Maybe the kid he has a special bloodline, Naruto warned as the others nodded. Soon a huge mist began to cover the area the four are in. Be on guard everyone. Suddenly Naruto began to notice something. All of you get out of the way. The other had barely any time to move as lightning came down and struck Naruto. Up in his hiding spot, Raiga chuckled. Another person to add to the funeral list. Wait. That one we hit is still alive. The child spoke. Raiga looked to his cloaked back. What's that? Raiga turned his attention back to the area below to see Naruto without any injuries. How the hell are you still standing, let alone conscious? Raiga shouted in shock. Naruto gave an amused chuckle under his mask. That's my secret and for you to figure it out. Naruto mocked as Raiga growled in annoyance. Are all of you safe? Naruto asked using his telepathy magic. Hi. They all said. Alright. Stay in position. Using his Sharingan, he sees several enemies coming towards him. Naruto brings out two simple katanas as he charges them with lightning chakra. He charges at the enemies but he is shocked that his swords impacted a couple of boulders. Naruto was left dumbfounded. What the? Naruto jumped back and then detected another two enemies to the side. He wiped with his swords again, only to impact a tree. What's going on? Naruto, what's up? Suigetsu asked. This enemy is more dangerous than expected. Not only can they disrupt sensors, and put people in illusions that not even Dujutsus can detect or dispel. What? Everyone on his team shouted in shock. Damn. That is a broken bloodline. Suigetsu said. Naruto, any ideas? Here's the plan. Naruto then began explaining his plan to everyone. One in the middle, another to the left, another to the right, one on the bottom cliff. The last one is on the middle cliff. The child said as Raiga nodded. Can't have funerals for all of them. So I will have to make sure there is no trace of them left. Raiga said as he nodded to himself. Futen. Whirlwind. A giant breeze blows through the mist, clearing the view for Naruto to see Raiga on top of the cliff. What? Raiga shouted in shock as Naruto stood there with an unimpressed look under his mask. You're gonna have to better than that, Raiga. Raiga blinked before he hummed in amusement. So you know who I am? Well, this will make things all the more enjoyable once I bury you. Raiga dashed downward in a burst of speed as his blades were coated in lightning. Naruto coated his own blades with the wind as the blades collided. Wind and lightning expelled everywhere. Ho, I see you're a sword wielder. Tell me your name, Raiga said with an amused tone. Menma Uzukage. Naruto grunted as held his position against Raiga, who smiled when he told him his name. Raiga got a giant grin on his face. Oh, that's a good name. I'll remember it when I have your funeral. Raiga said in an excited tone. Is that so? Raiga, former member of the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist. Raiga glared at Naruto. Don't remind me of those dark days. Naruto scoffed. Too bad. I want answers and you're the only one I can get them from. Like hell, Raiga said as he applied more pressure that Naruto easily returned. The two moved back to give themselves some space for their next attack. Raiden. Lightning Ball. Raiga shouted as he fired off his attack. Naruto channeled wind chakra into his blades that became mini whirlwinds around the blades. Futen. Wind blades. Naruto shouted as he launched several blades of wind chakra. The two attacks collided, causing a minor explosion. The two ninja dashed forward. Naruto tried a cross slash, but Raiga jumped into the air as he performed a double downward slash. Naruto managed to block it, but the sheer force caused the ground beneath him to crack and led to Naruto stumbling a bit. Raiga used this opportunity to slam a roundhouse kick into the disguised blonde's gut, sending him tumbling on the ground. Naruto winced in pain as he got up. Thunder Funeral. Feast of Lightning. Raiga shouted as a surge of lightning made a beeline for Naruto. Naruto having little time to react as he charged his blades with lightning chakra as he blocked the attack. A surge of electricity was expelled in various directions as Naruto struggled to hold off the attack. The force of the attack was slowly beginning to push him to the side of the cliff. The two continued to push at another. Something or someone had to give in. And something did. Naruto could hear something beginning to break like glass. He knew his blades would give out soon, so he needed to end this tug of war now. With one final roar of defiance, Naruto managed to finally push the attack back to Raiga, but it resulted in his sword's shattering. Raiga managed to dodge the excess lightning bolts. Naruto clicked his tongue in annoyance as he looked down at his broken blades. Great, I have done jack shit to him, and I just lost my swords. Nice comeback, kid. Too bad it cost you blades. Raiga complimented. Naruto glared at the rogue Kiri ninja. Oh, I have a backup. Naruto smoothly lied. Now. Naruto mentally shouted. Raiga behind you. The child shouted. Raiga had little time to react as Suigetsu appeared right behind him and performed an upward slash that ripped apart Raiga's cloak. A rather large bag that was on Raiga's back went flying in the opposite direction. Raiga. The child in the voice shouted. Ramaru. Raiga screamed in shock. Karen, get that kid out of the battlefield now. Naruto mentally commanded. Roger. Karen confirmed. Raiga then glared at the two. You're gonna pay for that, he growled. It's been a while, Raiga. Remember me? Suigetsu said as he rested his sword on his shoulder. Raiga blinked as he recognized the white-haired swordsman. Suigetsu. Still, the same brat as I remember. Raiga mocked. Suigetsu did not take the bait as he merely scoffed. Whatever. Now, why don't you sit down and relax, so we can discuss? We got some questions for you. Have you seen Kisame lately? Raiga snarled. I hate that name with a passion. Same with the upstart Zabuza. Raiga growled out. Too bad. We're not leaving without answers. Naruto said as he joined Suigetsu. The three were about to face off when they felt a spike of chakra as they some unfamiliar voices shout. Duden. Mud Spear Fall. One voice shouted. Duden. Rock Avalanche. Another one shouted. Move. Naruto shouted as the last thing on his list of things to do, dying by mudslide, was not one of them. Raiga and the two ran as they tried to escape the two jutsus. However, Raiga was hit by a stray rock spear. Naruto quickly went to help him, but that left them no time to run as both were swallowed by the jutsus. Suigetsu barely escaped by the skin of his teeth. He looked around with wide eyes as he saw no trace of his boss. He knew Naruto would not die from something like this, but he still needs air to breathe, which he won't be able to do if he's buried under mud and rock. Naruto. Suigetsu shouted with no answer. He turned to see Karen running towards him. Karen, where is he? He demanded quickly. Karen wasted no time using her inner eye to look for the two missing ninjas. Her eyes opened when she found her targets. I see him. He's still alive, but he's buried under all that rock. Karen said. Tell me and Jugo where he is so we can dig him out. Karen was about to speak when someone said. I don't think so. The two turned to see a small platoon of Iowa shinobi. The two glared at the man in front as Suigetsu got into an aggressive stance with his hand on his blade. What do you want? Suigetsu demanded. Simple. Control of these mines. With them, we'll have a foot in the land of fire. The two glared at the man as they knew what this is about. So this is some grand plan to invade Konoha. The Iowa ninja glared at Karen for reminding them of that village. Of course. Konoha embarrassed us with their yellow flash and we will finally have our revenge. Suigetsu raised an eyebrow. While he knew Iowa had some serious bad blood with the leaf after Naruto's dad turned the tide of the war, they never tried this directly to take land from Hai no Kuni. The Sandaime Tsuchikage was senile and bloodthirsty, but not crazy. I don't recall the Sandaime being that eager for war. Even for revenge. What's his gain from this? Suigetsu asked. Whatever reaction he expected, it was not for all of them to start laughing. This put the two on edge. Is there something funny? Suigetsu said with an edge. The head ninja finally calmed down from the laughing before he looked at the two in amusement. Let's just say that our village is under new leadership. One that will bring us back to its former glory. Now hand over the kid. Don't lie. We have a censor too and they know Raiga had a kid that had a bloodline that could disrupt our sensory capabilities and had incredible genjutsu capabilities. Karen and Suigetsu tensed as they waited for an opportunity to call Jugo to raise some hell. Why should we? Karen asked on edge. He has a very unique and powerful bloodline. We could use it in our ranks. The man said like it was the simplest thing in the world. Over our dead bodies, Karen said defiantly. Iowa ninja all looked unimpressed by Karen's bold stance. Pity. Well, the girl looks like an Uzumaki. I'm sure our boss would love to get his hands on you. One of Iowa nin said with a lustful smile that made Karen's skin crawl. We're also searching for that Uzumaki that Konoha was stupid enough to banish. If we can get our hands on him, we can convince to join our cause in the destruction of Konoha and prove that Iowa is the supreme village in all of the elemental nations. Suigetsu and Karen simply stared at the group of nin in front of them. This guy is a complete whack job. The head shinobi then looked at the two with an impatient scowl on his face. Now hand over, the head Iowa ninja began to say, but... Boom. What the hell? A pillar of chakra rose from the rubble and out came Naruto carrying an injured Raiga. Naruto looked at the group, with rage clear in his hidden Sharingan eyes. Prepare to die, Naruto snarled. Several of the Iowa nin were unnerved, but many were not the least bit intimidated. Let's see about that. One of the braver Iowa nin mocked. Naruto just viciously smirked under his mask. We'll see about that. Jugo. Out of nowhere, comes Jugo with his arm transformed with a maniacal grin on his face. Ha 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 ha. Take this. Most of the nin managed to dodge, except for one unlucky bastard that was ripped in half. You bastard, shouted one of Rock Ninja, angry that one of his fellow comrades was killed. Several of the men went through some hand signs, Doden, Earth Dragon Bullet. They shouted as their jutsu combined to make an enormous dragon made of rock and mud. Naruto glared back at the dragon. Raiden. Zakaruga. Naruto countered as he fired his spiral beam that ripped through the Earth Dragon Bullet and pierced the lead user in an instant. Damn it. These bastards aren't greenhorns. One man said before his head was blown off by Jugo in his transformed fist. We need to arg, one began to say before he decapitated by Suigetsu. Get the kid and the red-haired girl, shouted one of the remaining Iowa nin. Like hell, you will. Karen shouted as chains erupted from her back and went straight for the enemies. One managed to dodge, but the other was unable to dodge as he was hit with a crystal ball before he was pierced with Karen's chakra chain. Everyone turned to see Ultir standing a few feet from everyone. Nice timing, Ultir. Naruto cheered as Ultir giggled. Thank you. Everyone then turned to the last remaining Iowa nin, who was sweating profusely. Should I need to get out of here? The man said as he turned only to see Naruto in front of him. Boo. The last thing the Iowa nin saw was a fist slamming into his face and knocking him out. Raiga. Everyone turned to see Renmara kneeling near a mortally injured Raiga. Gomen, Renmara. This is the end for me. Raiga said weakly as Renmara had tears in his eyes. You can't die. Please don't leave me. He pleaded. Raiga rose his hand and patted his head. Don't worry so much. You'll be fine. Raiga then turned to see Naruto approaching him. He coughed up some blood before looking at Naruto. Can I ask you for a favor? He asked weakly. Naruto kneeled closer to Raiga to hear his last request. What is it? Raiga coughed. Can you look after Renmara for me? He pleaded as Naruto looked at the crying child before he looked back at Raiga. Naruto nodded. You have my word. Also, to answer your question from before, I have no idea where the bastard Kisame is at. Haven't heard anything about that fish bastard after he left the village. Naruto sighed. A dead end. Oh well. But I want to give you something. Naruto looked up and was shocked as Raiga weakly lifted his blades to Naruto. Take my blades. Naruto continued to look in shock at Raiga while the others were just as stunned. Was he really going to get another set of blades of Kiri this easily? Are you sure? He asked as Raiga nodded. Yeah, I kinda destroyed yours, right? I feel it only appropriate you take it. And I trust you more than this white-haired bastard. Raiga weakly mocked as he looked at Suigetsu. Screw you, asshole. Suigetsu retorted, although it did not have a lot of bite. Naruto slowly took the blades in his hands before looking back at Raiga. I will take them and treat them with honor, Raiga. Naruto promised in a resolute tone. Raiga nodded as he gave one last weak smile. Good. Those were the last words Raiga spoke as he finally passed on. Raiga. Renmara cried as he sobbed into the chest of the now deceased swordsman. The rest remained quiet in respect to his passing. After several minutes, Naruto got up and walked over the still unconscious Iwa nin. Ultir, I want you to help me manipulate this guy's memory, Naruto said as he glared at the Iwa shinobi. Ultir curiously tilted her head. What would you like to replace it with? Naruto then explained what his plan entailed for Iwa, Konoha, Akatsuki, and the rest of the elemental nations. After the explanation, Ultir had to giggle a bit before she removed his mask and gave Naruto a quick kiss to the lips. A devious plan, my future husband. I approve. Naruto blushed before hiding his face under the mask again. The group would leave a few days later after giving Raiga a proper burial. Renmara decided to go with Naruto and company as he had nothing keeping him in the land of rivers. The locals were eternally grateful and their daimyo was willing to form an alliance to keep in touch. Quite the successful mission, all things considered. Well, you guys had one hell of an adventure. Tsunami commented as she and the other girls listened to the team's retelling of the events. Renmara and Inari were playing outside the house. Yes, we did, Karen said with the other nodded. Well, at least you got something out of this, Ari said as Naruto unsealed the Kiba blades as he held the two in his hands. He could appreciate the master craftsmanship that was dedicated to creating these blades. Yeah. Though it will take some time getting used to these. Before anyone could say anything, the door was slammed open. Oi Naruto ni! Inari shouted as he burst into the house. Naruto asked what's up. I just got a message from Grandpa. He wants you to head to Uzu as soon as possible. He said he found something you should look into. Naruto nodded as he got up. Alright, let's go. Everyone quickly made it to the main island. They traveled to one of the sacred temples located in Uzu to find Tazuna waiting outside. So what's up? Naruto asked as he walked to Tazuna's side. Tazuna grunted. Come inside and you can see for yourself. When everyone looked into the shrine as they saw much progress had been accomplished in the restoration of the interiors. However, they quickly noticed something off. There was a stone pedestal mounted onto the wall. The odd thing was the wall itself. It almost looked like a door. Naruto looked at Tazuna. A secret passage. The bridge builder shrugged his shoulders. Yeah, that's what I and everyone else thought. We've tried going forward, but we couldn't get any further. It looks like it needs a blood offering, but even with Hanoka and Lisbeth, nothing happened. So I was hoping you had the magic touch. Naruto then walks forward to the pestle. Here goes nothing, he muttered as took out a kunai and sliced his wrist over the stone bowl below. For a few seconds, nothing happened, before a low rumbling could be heard as the pestle and the wall glowed a bright white. Everyone then saw as the wall was split in the middle as it opens inwards, revealing a passage with a flight of stairs going down. Well, this got more interesting, Naruto said. The group went down a flight of stairs. The passage was completely dark, but Ari provided some fire to light the way down. They continued down for a few minutes until they reached another door. Whatever is behind this must have been really important to go through all this trouble, Tazuna said as everyone else nodded. Everyone had to wonder what were the Uzumaki clan trying to hide down here. Naruto offered his blood again as the door opens to a rather large room that looks like some kind of sanctuary. There were 5 pedestals that were arranged in a pentagram, and each one had an item. The first was a broadsword with a blue handle with the curved yellow handguard. The blade had a platinum tint to it. The second looked similar as it was mainly blue and yellow with a silver blade. The third was a shiny gray blade with golden claws for a handguard. The one next to it looked like another broadsword with its primary color being blue and gold. For some reason, Naruto felt drawn to all the blades, but the biggest pull came from the last item. However, this one was not a sword, but a suit of armor. It was probably the most incredible suit of armor he had ever seen. It was pure white in color for the most part. The armor had several spikes coming out of the kneecap armor and the feet. The forearms had one spike coming out of the middle of the forearms. The helmet had a pale tan-colored mask with golden curved horns with 5 white horns coming out of the back of the helmet. Naruto felt a great pull coming from the armor. Like it was calling to him. What is this? Naruto asked in wonder as he continued to stare at the armor. Suigetsu was drooling as he looked at the blades and armor. He had to hold them. He was about to walk up to the blades when he felt 2 pairs of arms pull him back. He looked to see Ari and Naruto holding him. What's up? Suigetsu asked, which caused Naruto to blink in confusion. Why did he stop Suigetsu? It was like he felt compelled to stop Suigetsu from getting closer to the items in front of them. I would advise you, Suigetsu, that you not they to touch those items, especially that armor, unless you want to be vaporized. Everyone looked at Ari as she is rarely this serious, and the way she looked at the items. She looks as if she's seen them before. Or at least she knew about them. Ari-chan, do you know something about these blades and the armor? Naruto asked. Ari nodded. Yes, I have. I just can't believe it. They all still exist. I thought they were all destroyed when Uzu fell. Ari, what are they? Naruto asked as Ari sighed before looking at the blades. The blades in order are Excalibur, Caliburn, Ascalon, and Durandal. These are the celestial blades of Uzu. You can say they are the precursor to the blades used in Kiri. What? Everyone shouted. You're saying Uzu was the inspiration for Kiri to create the blades that are currently used by members of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist? Ari nodded. That's correct. Suigetsu just continued to stand there as he recovered from the mind-blowing revelation. These blades must be something special then, Tazuna commented as he remembered his close encounter with Zabuza's blade. The blades are very powerful and nearly indestructible. So no ordinary can stand up to them. All were created using special chakra-conducted metal. This means you can channel your chakra into the blades and it increases their cutting and piercing power. Not to mention by using the blade, you can naturally manipulate your elemental affinities with ease. It's said only the Uzukage was found worthy of wielding the blades. With just one blade, you can level an entire army with ease. Control all four, and you can have an entire village bow to you. Holy shit! Everyone shouted. They never thought they would find something this powerful in a hidden under Uzu. Wait, if all that is true, how come we have never heard of it? Suigetsu asked. If something this power existed, why had none of the other villages mentioned these blades? The Uzukage would rarely use the blades, Suigetsu. They were only to be used for dire times for the village, such as an invasion or war. Besides, not every Uzukage could wield the blades. If Garp could wield the blades, I guarantee that Uzu may still be standing today. Ari, what about the armor? Naruto asked. If the blades were this strong, then the armor was something else. Ari shivered as she looked at the armor, something everyone noticed. She gulped before she began. This is the white armor of Inferno. It was worn by Harem Uzumaki, the first Uzukage. The power of this armor surpasses even the four blades. Whoever wears the armor could single-handedly take a village down on their own. If that person also had the four blades at their disposal along with the blades of the Inferno, then nothing in the elemental nations could challenge you, except for the Biju. Everyone's eyes were very close to popping out of their heads. Good Kami, the Uzumaki were a frightening bunch. Which just makes their defeat all the more surprising. There must have been something else going on during the invasion. Everyone paused as they heard some snaps and cracks from somewhere. They all turned to the source and were understandably terrified. The source of the noise was none other than the Inferno armor. Somehow the armor got out of its pedestal as it began walking towards the group. Everyone was frozen in absolute fear at seeing the armor moving towards them. Ari looked at where it was heading. It was heading towards Naruto. Realizing what the armor wanted, she quickly got behind Naruto and began pushing forward. Ari, what the are you doing? He whispered. Naruto, you're going to have to trust me. The armor wants you. Oh, so I am going to be sacrificial lamb. Ari shook her head. I promise that won't happen. Naruto looked at her for a few seconds before reluctantly looking at the armor as he began to walk forward. Everyone was whispering for him to stop, but he ignores them as walks forward as he and the armor stop as they meet in the center of the room. What do you want? Naruto finally asked. The empty holes of the armor began glowing an eerie white as he heard a voice begin speaking to him. You are the one at long last. I have been waiting for you, my liege. Far off location in the land of Earth. In a forest miles away from the village hidden in the stones, a young kunoichi can be seen walking through the forest area. She looked rather injuries with several cuts and bruises all over her body. The young girl was holding onto something in her hand. She stopped as she looked at the item in her hand. An Iwa headband with a red sash. Water began falling on the metal piece of the headband. The girl gasps as she realized she was crying. The kunoichi wiped her eyes as she glared at the headband. She growled as she crushed the headband before dropping it to the ground. She then ripped some portions of their clothing before throwing them into the ground as well. They can't find me if they think I'm dead, she said before she began walking deeper into the forest. I will make them pay for this. Killing my grandfather, my father, my family. I will make them pay. She swore to herself. I will bring Iwa back to its true glory. Were her last words as she disappeared into the shadows of the forest. Tsuchikage's office, Iwagakure. That is my report, sir, said a familiar Iwa shinobi from the land of rivers. The Tsuchikage hummed in thought. This is startling news. Contact Orochimaru. We need to inform him of the Kyuubi Jinchuriki's fate. The Tsuchikage said. Yes, sir, his secretary said as she left the room. The Tsuchikage then turned to his bowing subordinate. He stood up as he walked towards the kneeling shinobi. He then places a hand on his shoulder. You have brought me some valuable information, Gaku-san. Gaku bowed his head in appreciation. Thank you, Ga. Gaku began to say but coughed out some blood as he looked down to see a bloody stone spear going through the center of his chest. He looked up to see the impassive face of his leader. WWY, he choked out. The Tsuchikage simply scoffed. While the information you have given me was useful, you still failed your mission to a group of unknown shinobi. One of them possibly being an Uzumaki. I told you and the rest before I have a zero tolerance for failure. The man said before ripping the stone spear out of Gaku's chest and slicing his head off. The Tsuchikage simply sighed before snapping his fingers as two Anbu appeared and took the corpse away. He then sits back as he looks down at the village. So much potential but completely wasted. Not one, but two Uzumaki were lost. Such a shame, they have been such wonderful tools. I'm sure my captives would have loved to have met more of their extended family. I would have especially loved to see your face, Namikaze. To see the village you crippled, now have your son to use however they want. All because the village you gave your life for, can't tell a child from a biju. It's almost comical. Speaking of Jinchuriki, I better keep those two on a tight leash, lest they try to escape once they hear the news. The man then smiled. I wondered how you'll take the news, Konoha. Knowing that your Jinchuriki is now gone forever, and nothing to protect you now. Your days are numbered and I can't wait to see you all burn.